Hello, grade 11 students. It's so nice to be back and to see you all again. Welcome to another series of lessons about Earth and Life Science. Our today's lesson is about Lesson 14, Geologic Time Scale. This module was written to help you understand the history of the Earth through the geologic time scale. This includes the major subdivisions and the significant events happened in the most recent period. After going through this module, you are expected to name the divisions of the geologic time scale, characterize each major and subdivisions in the geologic time scale, and describe how relative and absolute dating provide evidence of geologic history. The geologic time scale is a timetable of events in the history of the Earth. It is a system used by the scientists in relating stratigraphy and time to any geological events. This timetable of events is subdivided into geologic time units, eon, era, period, and epoch. These units are based on stratigraphy, which is the description of rock succession and its interpretation in terms of a general time scale, which is the basis for historical geology. The use of index fossils plays a very important role in the study of geologic time scale. They serve as indicators of specific geologic periods. As a quick recap, in the previous lesson you have learned that fossils are important in understanding geological changes through biostratigraphy correlation, which help geologists match layers of rocks in different locations based on their similarities. You have learned two methods which geologists use in identifying the age of rocks. One is the absolute dating, wherein the exact age of rocks or fossils are determined through radiometric dating method. The other one is the relative dating, where fossils are compared to something for which its age is already known. These methods are very important in arranging geological events and the rocks that were left behind in a sequence. It is through these mechanisms that help geologists generate the geologic time scale. Now, you will continue learning more about geologic time scale as you go through this module. The study of human development includes different stages, starting from prenatal to old age. The development is important in understanding how we learn, mature, and adapt. Some aspects of our life may change very little over time, while other aspects may change intensely. We are making our own life history as we recall and jot down the significant events that happen in our life. The history of the earth is compared to our life's history. Events in our life in every stage expand as we get older. These events or characteristics are basis of how a person matures, also a basis for tracking the age of or maturity of an individual. In the history of the earth, fossils, rock layers, and important events mark how long and how the geologic time scale was divided and lasted within a period of time. Now, you will learn more about this. The Earth's history in reference to the geological time scale is divided into different subdivisions with different time intervals that are not equal in length. How did geologists divide the geologic time scale? Significant events in the history of the Earth, fossils, and rock layers were used to divide the geologic time scale. Fossils, which are remains of ancient life like plants and animals, as mentioned, play a very important role in gathering important occurrences of facts and information about the existence of life and in the understanding of geological changes. Index fossils that were preserved in rocks were used as indicators of certain geologic period. Geologists usually relate the age of rocks with the age of fossils found in a certain area. Isn't so great how the Earth's history was made? Fossils and layers of rock are important in the determination of the ages. Now let us continue learning. Let's talk about the major subdivisions. First up is eon. Eons are the largest subdivision or interval in the geologic timescale, which is hundreds of millions of duration. The Phanerozoic eon is the most recent, which is about 500 million years ago, then the Precambrian eon. Eons are divided into smaller subdivisions called eras. The Phanerozoic eon is divided into Cenozoic era, the most recent, about 65 million years ago. Mesozoic era occurs between 65 to 250 million years ago, while Paleozoic era is about 299 to 542 million years ago. In Precambrian eon, it is divided into Proterozoic era, which is about 2,500 million years ago, the Archean era, 3,800 million years ago, and the Hadean era, which is 4,600 million years ago. Next is periods. Eras are further divided, and it is called period. In the geologic timescale, Cenozoic is divided into Quaternary and Tertiary periods. The Mesozoic into Cretaceous, Jurassic, and Triassic periods. The Paleozoic into Permian, Pennsylvanian, Mississippian, Devonian, Silurian, Ordovician, and Cambrian periods. Next is epoch. Periods are further divided and it's called epoch. Only in Cenozoic era is finely subdivided into epoch because rocks have been intensely deformed and are buried deeply and has been severely modified in a long-term earth process. The subdivisions of Cenozoic era are, for Quaternary period, Holocene and Pleistocene epochs, Tertiary epochs, Pliocene, Miocene, Oligocene, Eocene, Paleocene epochs. Now let's talk about the significant events that happened during the most recent part of the Earth's history. The enormous amount of events in the history of the Earth happened during the Precambrian, which is about 4.1 billion years ago. It was during Hadean, which came from the word Hades, meaning hell, was believed to be the most chaotic due to the bombardment of meteorites on Earth, causing severe volcanic eruption. It was during this time when the ocean, atmosphere, and the core were formed together with the stabilization of the crust. It is believed to be the beginning of the Earth. Can you relate this with your lesson on the beginning of the solar system or the beginning of the universe? I guess yes. The Archean era was described as the time when the Earth became warm. Most of the Earth was covered with water. Methane gas occupied the atmosphere with little to no oxygen. The abundance of this gas makes the atmosphere orange in color during this period. The formation of the continent was also believed to have started during this time, and great amount of iron and stromatolite on shorelines made the oceans green in color. Maybe you are thinking about the 7 continents that we have now. Well, they are not the ones formed yet during this period. It is also believed that the origin of life, especially the prokaryotes, happened in this period. The Proterozoic lasted almost half of the age of the Earth. The atmosphere started to have oxygen, making multicellular organisms called eukaryotes transformed. Other multicellular animals also appeared, and the continent started to drift away. In the time of Paleozoic era, life began to flourish in the sea. Can you name some of the invertebrate that you know? They actually appeared during this era. That is why it is known to be the age of invertebrates. The fossils of marine invertebrates, which lived near shallow waters, were found to form in sedimentary layers. Can you imagine a 2-foot-sized cockroaches flying or creeping around now? Actually, these are trilobites. Trilobites appeared during this era. Trilobites fossils were spotted to have been preserved in rocks during this period. In the midst of this era, animals that lived in water had developed shells. At the time of the Devonian period, which is known as the Age of Fishes, plants and the first insect is believed to have evolved. Animals started to breathe air as they came out of the sea and transferred to land, like the amphibians that you know now. Land plants like the marsh plants and giant ferns began also to develop. In the late part of Paleozoic era, reptiles started to appear, which must like their amphibian ancestors, only that they were able to lay eggs on land. The remains of this formed the large amount of gold deposits in many areas of the world. At the time of early Mesozoic era, or also known as the Age of Dinosaur, marked the breaking up of major land masses. The dinosaurs, the largest creatures that existed during this period, and is believed to be the descendants of the early reptiles, survived throughout this era. Sad to know that these large creatures are already extinct, and they are now just part of the history. If you could have the chance to peep through this period, would you like to see the T-Rex? Or the Stegosaurus? Or Triceratops? Sounds fun, right? The Cenozoic era, which is known as the Age of Mammals, new life forms started to appear. Volcanic eruption took place on a large scale, forming colossal flows of lava and basalt. Warm-blooded animals and other primordial mammals roamed the land. It was during this era, as observed in the stone tools used, that humans left marks on land. And so, we are in this period. That's why we are here. Can you imagine how God prepared everything before the human being came? Wow, it is well planned and systematically created. This time, let's talk about fossils. Fossils, as mentioned, are remains of ancient life that have been turned to stone. It can be actual parts of plants and animals that have been turned to stone. For example, bone, shells, and leaves. Most fossils are found in sedimentary rocks. These rocks form on the surface of the earth. They record the processes that have happened on the surface, including life. Scientists are able to arrange fossils according to age. This is called the fossil record. By studying the fossil record, scientists have found that the Earth and its life forms have gone through many changes in the past. Fossils have taught us how and when rock layers have formed. They also help scientists learn about life forms that have come and gone. Fossils have been taught us about the climate of the Earth long ago. Here are some examples of fossils. Branching tabulate coral. Age, Devonian, approximately 416 to 359 million years ago. Underclass Anthozoa. The modern relatives, corals still exist today. This is a branching tabulate coral. A branching tabulate coral is a marine animal. Corals are multicellular organisms that often live in colonies. The individual animal is called a polyp. There are many different species of coral with different forms, shapes, and sizes. Next is the trilobite. Age, Devonian, approximately 416 to 359 million years ago. Phylum, Arthropod. The modern relatives, crabs, spiders, and insects. Trilobites were marine arthropods. The first trilobites show up in the fossil record dating back to about 525 million years ago. There were many different types of trilobites, ranging in size from 1 mm to 72 mm or 28 inches long. Trilobite species went extinct by 250 million years ago. Trilobite fossils are formed from the exoskeletons. These were made of chitin, like some insects, and other organisms like lobsters. They split apart and shed their shell as they grow, just like lobsters do. Next is crinoids. Age, Devonian, approximately 416 to 359 million years ago, under phylum Echinodermata. Modern relatives are starfish, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers. Crinoids were marine animals. Its name means lily. It is in the same phylum or echinoderm as starfish and sea urchins. Crinoids ate by filtering food out of the water with its arms. Its mouth and anus were next to each other in the calyx. It rooted in place with a holdfast, and when crinoids die, their stems quickly break apart. And the most common fossils of crinoids are the stem, which is sometimes broken into little Cheerio-like pieces. Next is the gastropod. Age, Cretaceous, approximately 146 to 65 million years ago, under phylum Mollusk. Modern relatives are snails, slugs, and whelks. Arthropods were marine animals. There were many different species of gastropods. All had coiled shells. but some were tightly coiled while some were loosely coiled. They had many different shapes and surface texture. The animals lived inside their shells, taking up the whole inside of the long shell. They could retract into their shells, covering the opening with their foot. Next is the fossil clam. Age, Cretaceous, approximately 146 to 65 million years ago. Class, bivalve. Modern relatives are oysters, scallops, and mussels. Fossil clams are marine animals. Clams are bivalves with two asymmetrical shells. The shells are mirror images of each other. Fossil clams range in size from a few millimeters to up to 2 meters or about 6 feet in diameter. Clams lived inside their shells and had a muscular foot they used to burrow and move around. They lived in colonies on the ocean floor. Some clams have smooth shells while some were rough. That's an interesting lesson, right? We have to break your imagination, for you're about to begin accomplishing the activities related to this topic. Thank you so much for listening. Keep safe by staying at home.